And g'day. Welcome to an interview with Priyanka Mishra. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm David Applegate, author of the book The Boyhood of Cade, book one of the Empire of Elves. And welcome to Future Fantasy Empire. Now,
Thank you.
Priyanka is from Fuzia Talent. Now, Priyanka, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello. Hi, David. Thank you so much for hosting this amazing session. And hello, everyone watching this video. I'm super excited to be here and to give you a brief glimpse about who I am. So, like David said, yes, my name is Priyanka Mishra, and I am the business head and head of sales at Fuzia Talent. And it is a gig market platform that is actually helping women entrepreneurs and women professionals grow with economic independence. And all my roots are somewhere associated with this. As a person, I am somebody who's super joyful, very playful, when it comes to life. But at the same time, within my heart, I think almost from last 15, 20 years, I've been this wanting of help women and girls to reach whatever goals and objectives that are there in my mind. And so when I introduce myself, I generally like to talk about my interest in helping women. Yes, I don't say that the doors are closed to any other gender, but yes, it is always and always to uplift women and make this a very gender inclusive world. um, I am located in India, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous country, and my profession has always been around, monetization and sales, which means helping organizations grow, multifolds through the right kind of solution strategy. So yes, this is a little bit about me, David. Anything else that you would like to learn?
Yes, most definitely. I'm very interested in the creative side of business, and yeah, I came across you on. You followed me on Twitter, so as a writer, I'm always interested in the creative people, and this is what actually inspired me is it's other people's inspiration, and particularly people with energy and high levels activity, because with writing there's so much mental energy going on, and you really need sources of inspiration. And as a writer, to do diverse characters, you have to meet diverse people.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true.
And because I came across you, I was interested in the writing aspect of your business. Do you enjoy writing? I mean,
Yeah. So I am a poetess. So which is not something that come out very strong as often as with all the talents that I have. And with I think regretfully and unfortunately, it's not a lot of times that I happen to write. But for me, writing comes on when I'm like super loaded with emotions. And for me, it's like the best stress buster. So when I know that there's a strong urge and a strong emotion that my mind is going through, I tend to write. And most of my writing goes through the creative bit of more and more poetic aspect. And yes, so I love doing that. And the two languages that I write most often in is English and Hindi. So Hindi is one language which I'm sure you know is very predominant in India. So yes, so these are the two languages that I like, and I love writing poems. So that's the creative side of me, which I love doing in terms of writing.
now a lot of people, when it comes to poetry, probably their experience is Byron, or Japanese haikus, or maybe the occasional modernist. Trying to think of American classics at the moment. Just the American when you go to high school, it's Byron, classic American poetry, maybe a bit of Japanese. That's about it. But some people don't realize. But I I I'm not sure how much of Indian history is involved with poetry, but it's one of the oldest art forms, I believe.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
It certainly is. I mean, it goes
it's
back. Yeah.
yeah, it's a very universal art form. If you look at poetry, it's like the origins of rap is entwined with poetry.
Yeah, no, you're right. And especially because the roots actually comes from Sanskrit, which is like,
Yeah,
years and years of ago. So I know it, I mean, the evolution is actually,
Sanskrit, most people don't know this, but there's tonal languages and non-tonal languages. English used to be a tonal language, but when it modernized, it became very flat tone, whereas a lot of languages, and I do believe Sanskrit is actually designed as a poetic language.
Yes. I think most of them. It's only a
Very
few which are
tonal.
like weight ones. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're from Fuzina, or the founder of Fuzina. Please tell me about Fuzina's history and how it
Yeah.
is related to writing.
Right. So it's actually Fuzia, David.
My
And that's okay.
enunciation was
Yes, it's actually Fuzia, and
yeah.
which is all right. I know that, we all are coming from different sides of the world and we have got different pronunciation. I respect that. So no offense. But it's all nice to hear different kind of pronunciations for the kind of names that you have. I think for me it's very interesting, and that's a really interesting question. And I say this because this interview is predominantly about the creative skills, and I know that you come from that kind of a background as an author yourself. So Fuchsia's history is actually very in line with all the writing capacities in this world, and Fuchsia started in 2012 by our founder who was only 12 years old. And the beauty of it is that she started this as a very small writing club in California. Um, and in the process, it was a very small, club where schoolgirls would share their write-ups and, inspire each other. So learn from each other, share their poems, articles, and whatever they used to write. And with that, our founder Ria actually realized that writing is one of the most beautiful motivating tool to inspire people, because when you write, you actually acknowledge the emotions that you're going through, and in the process you visualized and I believe as a visionary herself, she realized that she wanted to make this space at a global level where people can generally collaborate with not just writing but also creative aspects, and share whatever creative sites that they have, whether in art form or modern graphic app approaches, and so on and so forth. And so this place became actually a creative hub, predominantly for women. But yes, now from a few years we've also started seeing a lot of traction coming in from other genders our way as well, and we are really going on our way to gender inclusive space. So our growth has really led to a space which is so diversified and inclusive, David, that people are coming in from so many different countries, and for us, top 30 countries in the world tops our list. And these are people coming in with their creative aspects. For example, for us, content writing and marketing genuinely gels up. So the roots actually go back to a very, very small writing club where schoolgirls would write their write-ups, to a space where we are a platform of about 5 million professionals that have their roots in creative aspects, helping organizations with any kind of demands that they have. So now it's the space, David, where Fuzia Talent is a talent market platform, is a gig market platform, which is helping organizations to hire creative talents and professional talents from our beautiful community that we have. So why I said that your question is so interesting is because you can really think that sometimes creative aspects you think of as a very tunnel vision, that okay, you're writing and it's expanding and creating awareness, but there's also a very beautiful side of helping people with enterprising aspects and economic independence because of the amazing creative aspects that they have in their mind, right? So this is the amazing history of Fuchsia and the present, and I'm happy to hear your views, and if you have any questions around it.
Well, historically, particularly in the West, where women were pretty much required or self-imposed exiles at home, there were different periods of history, there were different attitudes. But historically, you go back to some of the best writers, and they all have the same, the stay at home, collaboration. And writers' clubs gave us authors like Mary Shelley with Frankenstein. And she's an example that comes to mind. But you have, although in modern times, you have Writers Cafe, gave us the development tools. You had Write On with Amazon in their early days. You had a lot of collaborative platforms that used to, and some extent still do exist.
Yeah.
But the level of collaboration you're talking about is amazing. You have such amazing energy that it surpass what your platform surpasses anything I've come across in the past, particularly with your level of energy and level of activity. Whereas I think a lot of writers do become introverts, but there's so much to writing. There's writing history, there's writing fiction, there's non-fiction, although history is non-fiction, but that could be debated too. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
writing of history on its own is an art form to not just convey everything you see, but the emotions, the feelings, the attitudes of the time. Um, some of the greatest books describe emotions which you can't often portray, or the inner dialogue. There's a lot of dynamics to writing that I think that you get from learn through collaboration, rather than the dry classroom where you get a big thick textbook on writing, and it doesn't come across as well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think it's just not restrictive to writing. I think collaboration can genuinely take you a long way in whatever you're doing. I think the sense of community is something that humankind has been observing since their inception, right? So I know that you're right. Anything which is like just bookish and theoretical will always stay like that. And when you collaborate and you experience, is something that can always delve into your writing as well.
Yeah,
But I really
collaboration is
appreciate you kind
yes.
of appreciating Fuchsia and the growth and all that we are doing. I was actively listening, and I really appreciate that you're not comparing any one platform with each other. And I understand that every platform has its own uniqueness, and for us, it goes back to our roots. And yes,
Mm,
then coming back and going forward with
yeah.
all the work that we are doing towards it.
Well, I'm just saying it's sad that some of these collaborative platforms have fallen by the wayside. Not to say that, yeah,
Yeah.
they had their place and they had their time, but I feel that those they shouldn't have been shut down. The collaboration is a better teacher, I think, than the dry textbook, and
Yeah,
that's
it
what makes
certainly is.
part of what you do truly amazing. Because there aren't that many collaborative platforms out there.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yes.
How do you? How does Fuzia Talent help authors grow and promote their books?
Right. So, interesting question again, and it sort of connects to the kind of growth that we have had over the years, David. And we realize as a platform which is predominantly helping budding entrepreneurs and authors to establish their work, we realize that while there are about more than 100 million uh, books in this world at the moment, and I'm sure more. Um, a lot of times there are, yes, it goes back to a space where authors are not able to establish their book because you know not to demean anyone, but a lot of times a part of it is also that the book is not well researched, the target audience is not established. So there are factors like that, right, which have been established over the years. But a lot of times we've also seen that amazing book which have come up with like amazing experiential research, background research, written very well targeted for a particular audience, is not able to do well in terms of selling and promotion, um, only because the focus and the planning in terms of marketing was not established in advance. So as far as the creative angle of authors, what we realized was that the entire energy of these authors were in terms of writing a good book. Everybody has that objective, yes, but a lot of times marketing and promotion of that books genuinely take a back seat. And so we realized that when you actually have a well planned strategy to establish your book, number one, create awareness about the topic. For example, you're writing a non fictional book, for instance, and you realize that, for in your mind, you feel that it's a very popular topic, although you've done the right kind of research. But a lot of times for your audience, it's still a topic which has a very bleak awareness about it, right? And I'm sure that you must have seen that as well, David. For example, somebody is writing a book on self care. That person in the mind has been teaching self-care for so long that it's kind of embedded in the head that everybody knows and understands the relevance of self-care, and also because the research is done and you feel that the world knows it. So circling back to your question, how Future Talent is actually helping authors, market and establish their book is making them realize that number one, it is important to establish the awareness of the book and the background of the book. And then, like a very well planned strategy, number two, which means that you can really have like a pre launch, a launch, and a post launch campaign in order to, create the right kind of buzz, create the right kind of, relevance for your exact target audience, for them to even realize that this is a good book, right? Nobody can really judge the book by its cover, which is yes, but for even people to know that cover is on, you have to have that baseline marketing, right, David? So as a organization with like so many talented marketing talented women in our community, we try and help these women have like, established campaigns and projects that is really streamlined to market their books well in advance, so that when there is, the time to, launch the book, there's a right pre-launch campaign, a launch campaign, and a post-launch campaign to make sure that there's the right kind of buzz and awareness for the book for the, buyers to take interest in and then decide whether it's the thing for them or not.
Yeah, as somebody who in 2016, I marketed my book, but for a lot of people, there's that post-launch depression where that, after a few months of sales, that's it. I think support. I think this is one thing I like collaborative groups is they do become a support group.
Yeah.
Um, there's always there's always stuff to learn, but there's always that there's always uh, that difficult time where like you said, there's 100 million books. You only have a short window before somebody else's marketing campaign kicks in. And unfortunately, in this day and age, a lot of people are out willing to spend what a book is worth. I mean, it's just, just the way it is, unfortunately. But yeah, a good book is still a good book. It doesn't matter whether it sells 5 or 1,000.
Yeah.
I think one of the things support platforms can give people is that uplift they need to understand. Not everybody's going to succeed, but we're in this together. And I think that's something people need too.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, yes, not every book can be a bestseller. Sometimes even the good books in the world, are not able to reach the so-called metrics of the world. But I think deep down in the heart, everybody is writing that particular book with a lot of enthusiasm. And
Mm,
I mean, assuming that these are all good books, they will still want people to know and learn about it, right? So I think
yes,
that a part of the energy should also go into creating that right awareness so that more and more people can know about it. It's just like any social message, David, that, for example, if I like to help something or someone socially on a social cause, I would love to talk about it more and more so that at least it can just, you know, bring out a thought in your mind, right?
become
And
social
maybe,
conscience.
yeah, yeah. So I feel that it actually goes back to a space where authors should now start thinking, and a lot of them have really realized the importance of it. And I'm not really talking about spending, thousands of dollars on establishing and promoting your book. It can just begin with a very small practice of, personal branding your own self, for instance. When you talk about your beliefs, establishing yourself, I'm talking about the beginner authors, and there are like people who are like established authors, but most of the majority of the people have just written one book or in the process of writing their first book. A lot can also go back by establishing themselves as a thought leader. When they talk about their beliefs, when they talk about their values, people are generally interested in the kind of content that they are thinking. And very natively, they're also talking about their books. So it's not just about spending thousands of dollars, and not everybody would have that capacity, right? So a lot can be done with, um, a lot of times things can be free also. You just have to put the right energy, as I said. But even small amounts can take you a longer way, is what I think, and what our organization is also trying to establish.
That's good. And what
Yeah.
advice would you give to authors trying to promote their book?
Well, I think I'm not well knowledgeable to sort of give an author an advice because I've not been in their shoes. So I'll be naive to kind of recommend that. But with the kind of forte that I have, David, I think I would genuinely tell them to begin, like when they have the thought of writing the book established, when they know that this is the thing that I'm writing, or for example, this is the storyline for friction books. I think one thing that authors should also parallelly start thinking is that what is the right target group for my book, most of the times it's established. It can be broad, which is okay, but a lot of times I feel that if that planning is correct in terms of writing that book for a special audience, and you also have like a very subtle way of promoting the objective or a topic of that book way in advance, I think it will take them long way when they launch that book, because people are slightly aware of what is this going to be, so my little advice is that keep that little, you know awareness going around and a little curiosity in your audience that something is coming up about that topic.
Now, writing is a stressful process, but I mean, most human endeavors that involve thinking actually becomes quite stressful. So, how do you deal with the stress?
Okay, so I think for me, um, I have stressful days almost every day. I'm being
Yeah,
very honest. So I
yeah,
always have my notebook and my pen. So for me, it's actually my journal, which makes me going, And so, and
that's
I have
good.
my, team of my team photographs with me always, which makes me feel that, these are the people that we are working for. So, and I'm talking professional stress, not personal at the moment. But yes, for everything, I usually try and write everything down, at least for the day. And these are like small bits, smaller stress takes you to the bigger ones, is what my perspective is. So I generally have a tendency of starting my day with my to-do list, and I'm very primitive that way. Very digital savvy, but I'm very primitive when it goes to my writing. So I have my to-do list to deal with my stress, so that I know, okay, these are the things that I have to accomplish, and at least my brain is not taking that load of keeping everything in my mind. So that's one thing that I generally do. And like I said in the beginning, when I'm like super stressed, emotionally, something is really hindering me, that's when my poetess mode is on and I go into deep writing. So that is one way of doing that. And then other than that, yes, there are little things that I would like: going out for a good walk in the nature. I also like meeting my family and friends, when it's super exhausting. So I make sure that these are the people I know who are my go-to people. And I'm a very family and a friend oriented person. I don't have like millions of friends, and like millions is like a huge number, but I'm just
Mm.
exaggerating. I don't have a lot of friends, but there's just three or four of them which are super close to my heart. And I'm a very, very well knitted family. So it makes me easy for me to go back and, at least also trust their boundaries at the same time, that my stress is not recurring to them. But yes, so writing and, just being with the people around me and, going for a walk are my three top threes.
That's amazing because most people don't have a stress plan or or an right. Your stress plan is very clear, very focused. You're dividing it. You're isolating it from others. It's a lot of people. Yeah, writing is. I mean, I said writing's very stressful, but it can be an outlet for stress. It's depends on what you're doing. If you're in the middle of, say, plotting out a chapter and you've got your outline and your hero's dangling on the edge, what will he do? And if you just can't think of that, I guess what I'm saying is you have to turn it around, and maybe do something else, and yeah, isolate your stress. I think that's a very good plan you have there, and it's very obviously well going out for you. You haven't got any stress lines. Look at me, I'm full of stress.
I think everybody is, David. Like I said, I've got stress every day. I'm like, oh my God, my fog is coming, my fog is approaching. But I'm like, okay, no,
Yeah,
so I have to write down. But I clearly know that for me, it's like a writing is not something that I'm doing all day long. So I can go back to my diary and my journal to go back, write down to whatever I have, my emotions. But I can clearly see that people who are into writing, for example, all the time, it's like their main profession or the thing that they're doing. Writing can be stressful for them. So I think then that's the time when they take a step back and they think about, okay, now I'm going to stop for a bit, go back, rejuvenate, do whatever they like, and then go back to, their work. So it's just about shifting your mind from one place to another to distract yourself for a bit.
this has been an amazing conversation. So, what's that one piece of advice you'd like to share with people?
Okay. So, David, honestly, I feel that um, a lot of times people are not up for advices. I think
Well, that's
they would
true,
do, yeah, they
but
would do what they would want to.
they do come for they do come whether they like it or not for the advice. But it's the inspiration. Let's call it inspiration.
Yeah. So I think one advice, if you would ask me to give, and I think rather two, because we're talking on a broader topic right now. Number one, I would always tell them that just believe in yourself. Whatever you're feeling underconfident, not feeling right for it. You might not be feeling well. I think a lot of times things can be done when you control your mind. And I think everything is here. So if you can really take a deep breath and realize, okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to care what's going to happen, right? And that's when you will realize, okay, I've just done that. Rather than procrastinating something, just go ahead and do that. And you will feel much relief because that will bring you experience. It might give you a lot of regrets as well, but who cares? We all have a few of them in our lives, don't we? So I think the best way is to try and take that one step of believing in yourself. You cannot believe in yourself overnight. It's a very long path, but I think just one moment that you feel is challenging, that is coming up in your life, just believe in yourself and go in that situation or that particular circumstance that you're anticipating. That's one. And the other thing is that we are talking about stress and writing. A lot of my stress, like I said, goes away when I start my day with my to-do list. And a lot of times I know our teachers in school have been telling us to write, write, write. And because I think we have written so much in our school that now we really don't want to open our diaries and notebooks. But I've seen that when I actually take the load off my head and put it in my diary that, okay, these are the things that I have to do, I'm more peaceful at heart. Okay. And I know, okay, these are the 10 things I have to do, and five of them are done, but which is okay. I've not been able to do the rest five, but I can still transfer it to the other day. Right. So I think my two advices, if anybody would be interested in taking that, would be that try and believe in yourself, and you will go a long way. And the other one is that write, write whatever you think you're struggling with, something which is, making you anxious. Just open your phone, write down what you're feeling, and just keep it ahead. You want to keep that in your note, keep that it. You want to delete that up, delete it up, but just write so that it's off your mind. So these are my two advices for anybody who's interested in it.
Okay, lastly, is anything you want to ask?
Well, yes, yes, yes. I want to
Yes.
understand what is your writing inspiration, David. So it's
Uh,
like you've been interviewing authors, and I clearly see that you have been associated with promoting people, their books. So, what is your inspiration? How do you see yourself?
well, since a kid, I've been fascinated with legends of the elves, folk tales. I grew up with Tolkien. With my mother read The Hobbit, and she got me into The Hobbit, and she gave me Lord of the Rings when I was like 12, and I got into role playing games, and I really got into reading legends, and I found dragons, elves, dwarves, these giants. These are all things that are very common around the world, and so I think. I put it off for a long time, and after my second divorce, I just, I realized that I just been putting it off all the time. I've had this story building in my head about elves and space travel, and all these things came together, and I guess part of my inspiration is the commonality of human struggle. And I've tried to look at it like, how would it be for the elves? I mean, given all that we supposedly know, quote, know about the elves, which is very little, but what we know about these supernatural beings with a supernatural lifespan, what it would be like for them, because they live longer. They have to, you know, little petty. I think given the fact that humans, when they get older, they start to get less and less wrapped up in the drama of little things. I'm thinking, for a species that would live hundreds of years, that, try and imagine that kind of life, where
Mhm.
petty things and think family and collaboration and survival become more important than, am I doing better than somebody else? Because I
Right.
think that's where most stress right now is people are constantly saying, am I doing better than somebody else? And if somebody's ahead of me, how can I trip them over? They're not thinking, how do I catch up or how do I get past them? Too many people are thinking, how do I trip them over? So I just took these things and really, um, though I approached too much modern writing is childish. Like, I didn't want to do another Harry Potter. I didn't want to, because I grew up with schoolboy tales. My grandmother used to give me those, those schoolboy books. You might have seen them. They, I didn't like it. I thought they were, you know, um, just one dimensional. I wanted something that was really adult, that would deal with tackle violence, and basically I looked at it from also a technological point of view, where, geez, if they're magical and supernatural, their technology would advance faster.
Yeah.
They'd because they'd be able to do things that normal people can't. And I think dealing with the supernatural world is also something they'd have to deal with because they are supernatural beings. So there's a whole, I've really tried to encapsulate all that and look at from the point of view. Most people look at a cliched, right? The boy orphan. So rather than the boy orphan, I'm looking at it from the privileged side. What does the privileged side of life look like? And is it so privileged? Especially if you look at the threat that
Hmm.
the privileged face throughout their entire life. It's not as privileged as most people think. And
Yeah.
also, the last thing, sort of like a spoiler, I deal with demonic possession. And from the point of view that uh, I think it doesn't fit with Western philosophy. I think I don't know much about Eastern philosophy, but in some Eastern philosophies, demonic possession is not always a bad thing. And so I look, because this is the source of supernatural, right? This supernatural powers, and how people would cope with that sort of thing. If these things, and of course, it's not without conflict, it's not without drama. It's just I'm trying to avoid tropes and cliches that everybody's walked. Like you said, there's 100 million books. Every cliche is walked, and it's very hard to um, be original these days. But you can try,
Yeah.
and I think my final inspiration, is other people's writing. I see that. If I can read it, I can write it. That if I can read it, understand it, I can write it. It's sometimes that simple.
Which is amazing, David, because I think, like you talk about the rat race everybody's into, that I want to be there ahead of the other person that you feel. I think rather than you concentrating on how to go ahead, if somebody can really take inspiration, and we all know that somebody is a little more experienced in a special segment than one person is. So maybe I'm good at, so a fish cannot climb a tree. I'm sure you heard that Einstein saying so many times in so many quotes. But I think when people can really take inspiration from somebody who is a little more aware and knowledgeable in a special segment, that's a better approach to go about it rather than envying it and focusing on your negative energies around it. So I think it's a very positive approach, as I see also that you take inspirations from, for example, reading books of other people and other authors. And you're right, originality can be tricky in this world where there are like so many books. But I think it's your mind, and your mind can really do bizarre things, right? So I love how you really brought in a more adult version, and relying it with the aspects of our own life, which is like such a beautiful thing to hear. And thank you so much, thank you so much for having me on this show. And I'm happy to answer if you have any more questions, or if you have any more last thoughts before we part ways for this particular session.
Well, I'd like to thank you for coming. You're very inspirational. Very. I hope that your colleagues will share this. Share this around. So, because this isn't just promoting me. This is promoting you. This is people. I hopefully will find inspiration in this interview and realize that what I said before. If you can read it and understand it, you could write it.
Yeah.
You're not held back by the fact you don't have a PhD in English, that
Hmm.
or a professional journalist. I think that's a very, very, very poor cliche for people becoming a writer, that they first have to become a journalist. And I
Yeah.
hope that you can help dispel that myth too. That if somebody's got inspiration, they can write. And I say that you know, look at Mary Shelley. She met a group of writers, she spoke with them, and she understood what they were on about. And that was where she became, and she took their challenge to write the most villainous, horrific story. And of course, spoiler alert, humanity is the villain of the story.
No, but you're right. I think for many years I felt that. So
Yes,
because English is not my first language, for many years I felt that maybe, like, I have this small urge in me to write one book one day. But for
yes,
me, because my writing is only and only governed with emotions, like, it's not my mainstream thing. I have that dream of writing one thing, but for some reasons I always take a backseat that, okay, I don't even have like a script. It's like, okay, I want to do this someday. Okay. And that's just thought hanging over my mind for so many years. And the beginning of the years were just about that. Oh my God. Um, what will happen to the grammar, what will happen to the lexical errors. So I'm like, that's, and now you're saying it, I also realized this a few years ago, that that's not important. What the idea is, the inspiration, the idea is the ideology behind writing that book. So I think this last thought is very important for all the writers and upcoming writers and the budding writers in this world there.
well, lastly, for those who think they can't do it, I have a language disability. I don't always spell correctly. I don't always recognize my own errors in grammar, and um, my even my placement of commas. That I struggle with the from here to page.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, speaking, I've overcome that difficulty with speaking, but I haven't overcome it with writing. So if I
Mm-hmm.
can write a coherent book and have people give me my second book got 4 stars, and if I can do that, I think anybody who thinks they're held back by their gender or their race or even their age, you're the one holding you back.
Yeah. So you're right. I think, again, pointing out, so believe in yourself and everything will be okay. Right? So it's just having that own belief in your mind. Everything is here. And if it's here, I think it's once it's here, it's easier to be penned it down, right?
Yeah, an idea is a seed, and
Yeah.
your notebook is your garden. So
It
let it
is.
grow, let it grow.
It is. It is. It is.
And thank you
So
everybody for coming. All the viewers, I hope you all take inspiration and take heart. Just because there's 100 million books doesn't mean you don't have the right to write yours either. I I think gone are the days where, I mean, 50 years ago there were hardly any authors, and almost every book became a bestseller. I know it's disheartening for people, particularly my generation, who grew up with that, thinking if I become an author, it's easy. There's hardly any competition. And these days, I'm sorry, I know it looks disheartening, but try not to approach writing as a profession, but as a creative endeavor.
yeah, which is a lovely thought. I think. Thank you so much for having me,
Thank
David, and
you,
all the best to you and all
and
the
all the best to
authors
you
and
too.
all the viewers out there. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay, bye everybody.